Now it's good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm starting here with these two works of art. And I'm putting them next to each other because in some ways they connect for me, and obviously they're very different. The one on the left is by El Greco. It's called Portrait of a Man. I think they kind of changed the thoughts of who it is. It was a self-portrait. It was a portrait of a Jew at some point. It was all these different things. That I think it's just called Portrait of a Man now. And the next to it is by Alberto Giacometti, the sculptor. Diego, bust of his brother called Diego. I think it's from 1955, and El Greco is 16th century artist. I think the reason I'm putting them together is something that comes from observational painting for me, which is Giacometti was a sculptor, obviously, but he almost sculpted like a painter. He wanted to create space in the sculpture. So yes, he's doing the head of his brother, but he's mostly interested in creating this experience of space between you and his brother, the way he's seeing him. And then by doing that, you can open up space within yourself to go deep somewhere, to go to this emotional state. And so he's kind of showing you from even just from this one viewpoint, the space between the forehead here to the top of the head here. And similarly, in the El Greco here, you have this incredible amount of journey that you can take from that point here to the top of the head here. It's almost like miles away, that top of the head. And it's amazing. It's an incredible experience the more you sit in front of this painting, especially in real life, because you get this incredible space between things that just feels real, feels like the experience that we have when we look at someone. We don't know necessarily that we have that experience, but we do. We experience somebody, we experience the back of their head, we experience the mask, we experience the way they walk, the way they pose. That those are the things we kind of get energy-wise. And so that's why I think he's really interested, even though he's obviously incredible in just showing the emotion of this person and the expression and that mode of his piercing eyes. And that's also true in the Giacometti. But I think it's just marvelous to see how the triangle here and the triangle here, there's a similarity there that comes from observation and intense observation and wanting to create the spaces and the spaces for the view to enter into.
It's really interesting, Dov. Checking out the comparison between those two artists. Never thought of them like that. It's kind of interesting too, thinking about that they probably thought about painting pretty differently, but not. If you had the two of them sit at a table for a while, they'd probably have a lot to commiserate on, but it might not seem that way at first, just because they're from totally different centuries.
Totally. It'd be interesting to see them actually to drinking coffee together.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I'd be very surprised if I saw that.
Yeah. Here's another Greco and another point of view of that Giacometti. And you see it's this that elongated figure that's obviously in the El Greco and obviously in all of Giacometti's work. It's not an idea, it's not a style. It's something that I think happened almost every time in a new way, in a fresh way, because of the experience of looking and thinking of it in that way, trying to experience that space between the viewer and that model and that figure. There's so much space between us and until you get to that head, So I think that space is something so unique to painting that still any photograph or any computer generated technology doesn't really capture, and that's the kind of the beauty of painting and sculpture. That's still so advanced in some ways, and real, and ancient at the same time. Just an anecdote, one of our teachers, Andrew Forge, who was a great writer as well about a lot of artists. I remember him saying that this hand was, for him, the most beautiful hand ever painted. So just a little anecdote here.
Nice.
um,
Dov, I want to
Yeah.
just remind everybody, I'm not seeing the whole screen anymore just because we're looking at your the art here.
Yeah.
But whoever's joining in, and if we haven't actually talked to you yet, I want to remind people that you're allowed, you're invited to talk too. I mean, just to, if you have some thoughts or something, you want to ask Dov something about this work, or if you have an observation yourself, you're welcome to.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's the idea, and I'm starting with these works just as a way to start a dialogue. This particular painting is in the Met in a room that has a sofa in front of it. It's the most comfortable place in in New York besides a home or anything. But it's like you go and sit in that sofa and look at that painting for hours on end. At least I do.
Dov, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
These first four works, I noticed that the space that the body takes up is quite large, and they all point up in a triangular motion to the head.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment on that?
Absolutely. I think that, well, our teacher Mercedes to say that triangle is the most powerful structure there is, and she was also friends with Buckminster Fuller, who actually, if you don't know who he was an incredible architect that kind of based all of his shapes on this triangles, and he created the stadium, the dome, the whole idea from triangles. So it's an intensely powerful shape, and I don't think it was intended, but I think structurally, as you build a painting, when you construct it, coming up with it is a very powerful thing. And all these great paintings are both real and abstract. The two are not separated. So you can't really, and when I say abstract, I mean there is some geometry behind it, some sort of geometry that is within the things that we can call by name. So if there's a wrinkle if there's something in this coat, it also is a rhythm to another thing. To maybe the bone here, the cheekbone is like that coat here. So there's these under structures that happen in a great painter. They happen maybe subconsciously for someone, and somebody great like El Greco, working so many years and in developing his craft, that gets into the work more and more subconsciously, and the two are interconnected. These inner shapes and the external reflection of this is a person, and he also has an eye and a beard, but it's also a geometric shape. It's also a structure within the rectangle. And the same for Giacometti, who obviously almost all of his work is a certain triangle like that, or a very long elongated figure, reflecting the space between him and the model. So it's just what happened. I don't think it was an idea or a style to do that beforehand, but as you observe, it comes into play. It appears, so to speak.
Right. They're not self-conscious about it, but it's
right.
It's their disposition.
Yeah.
So a little biographical detail about El Greco.
Yeah.
You may know this. His real name was Dominikos Theotokopoulos. He was born in Crete, Iraklio, Crete, and was doing icons.
Yep.
When he was in Crete. Yeah, I'm from Crete, so.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
I
shows of his early work, amazing too.
I know. that's what I
Amazing.
was about to say. We had a big retrospective of his work here in New York, and they showed all these icon paintings, the early
Yeah.
work. One unbelievable amount of
Right.
incredible work.
Yeah. Also, the
Yeah.
Onassis Center. I don't know if you saw that show. Had his early work too in New
No, I
York.
didn't. Yeah,
You didn't see that?
yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, he was very much
Yeah.
a medieval icon painter, and then at some point started developing, later his own voice. And, definitely
Right.
coming, but
When he
definitely
went to
coming into
Venice
that.
and then
Yeah. Oops, jumping a little bit here. Oh yeah, let's talk about this. So this self-portrait here by Rembrandt. It's, for me, probably for a lot of us, it's one of the great paintings in New York for sure. It's it's very hard to even talk about or describe because it's so real that it every time it's mind blowing. Every time you go and see it, it's in the Met. Highly recommend if you come to New York to go see this painting. Um, it's impossible. It's like it's one of those things that it's so real. It's both solid and not solid. It's you feel light going through the body, but the body is so solid at the same time. It's like um, you look at him and you immediately feel the humanity in such a deep way through the eyes, through the hat, through the way the light is, emanating from him. Um, and I think, I mean, he really did change humanity in some ways, and you can see it in this painting. It's like, he goes so deep into himself that I feel through the inwardness of that he becomes every human almost, and so this is just an amazing painting. It's interesting to see it in relation to the Greco because they're both so great, but there's also such a difference between them. It's almost even hard to say anything about this in terms of like this is a triangle, or because I think he just does so many things at once. There's air around him. It's circular. It's triangular. It's the back wall is so incredibly painted in real life. It's completely modern. It's almost like a Gorky painting, and you feel the air, you feel the space, you feel the light moving through, and that hat is so particular, and you can't even draw from it. I tried many times. It's impossible. But whenever I did try, I saw how much the personality of this person is in that hat. And in that way, I'm relating it to the Cézanne here. If you see the top of the hat here, and this mountain, this great mountain, Victoire Mountain, that he painted late in his life, I don't know, something about that line relates to me to this. And obviously, Cézanne's greatness, the way he created space, and found light within his work, that I see these two related. I see them connected in some way, through light, through inner light within the work. This painting here is in the Met as well, and it's just an amazing painting. And he, just with these little patches of color, these little dots, created this whole space of a valley. It's kind of mind blowing, just putting them in relation to each other, creating this immense thing. And in that way, I feel the same. I feel that happens here. You have so much air to get to. It's like a mountain. He's all of those things as well. So yeah, those are definitely in my top 3 paintings in the Met. These 2 paintings here.
Joe, kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you obviously know this. The cool anecdote about the Cezanne painting. He added a panel onto the right hand side. Yeah, isn't that the painting that he added on?
I don't know. No, I don't. Is it this one?
Yeah. I'm almost positive.
Huh.
You can kind of almost see the brushstrokes are pretty different. Like over in
Like
the
here?
right hand third.
Uh-huh.
Like somewhere here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Huh.
And if you go, I'm almost positive that's the one, but it's just kind of cool to think about because obviously he's like a master painter, but he's making his painting and he's like, oh, I need more canvas. Just add it on.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, especially in real life, this painting has so much depth to it, and so much, and the light is so real coming from in it, and that you would see the connection between these 2 in real life so much more, I think, than here necessarily. But it's coming from that light, coming from inside, which is a marvelous thing that can happen in paintings. It's
really cool.
Yeah, let's go to this painting here of The Abduction of Rebecca by Delacroix. That would be my 3rd painting in the Met. And then this one would be my 4th, if I have to rank them, which is not a good thing to do, but still cool. Yeah, this painting is such a profound narrative painting. There's so many things that we can talk about. But when I keep on looking at it, to me, even though I know the story, there's a story behind it and a narrative, there's something deeper that he wanted. And it's this energy of wind, this energy of fire, this energy of the elements that's coming through. And it's mind-blowing to see it in real life. And you see this, the way this horse is moving across, and the way the fire and the smoke is circulating in the air, and the movement of each one of these figures, the turning, this person is turning one way with his torso here and legs, and then the rib cage is turning the other way, and the hand is almost all the way going the other side, and the head is looking there. It's about motion, it's about movement, and it's the ability to paint something that obviously has a definition and an end to it, but it's completely in movement. It's completely able to move. That is a real experience. That is something that painting can do, which I think no other medium can do. It's almost like at some point that figure was in one place, then he moved it, then he kept on moving it, and kept on rearranging it. The same with the horse, and the horse's head was here, and then here, and then here, then moved back. And these movements, that history of movement is recorded in the painting, and so it gives this energy encapsulated in it, and the way the background here mimics them, the figures. This is this building, and it's just a great dialogue. It's a great. And then you kind of forget about the story, but the story is the impulse, is the reason to do it at the same time. And so it's an incredible painting. And the next is here.
Also a colorist.
Oh, such a colorist. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I was lucky enough to travel to Morocco 12 years ago. And the one thing that I remember from that is just seeing that blue that Delacroix has in his paintings from Morocco, and experiencing that in that landscape. It was mind-blowing. Because the color,
That must be.
for great colorists like that, I feel it's almost like the color doesn't even sit on one object. It's not like it's just relating to one thing. It moves across. It's like you feel blue, but the blue can move through the body and through the fabric and into the space behind and into the building, and just magic in some way.
Oh,
And next to it, this
red.
painting, yeah. No, please go ahead if you have.
We were just saying red too. He has a lot of red and warm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
this red here, but it's emanating from it. Like it kind of like jumps to the hands, and it jumps. It's like it's light. You feel it.
He definitely uses color pretty different from Rembrandt, huh?
Very different. Yep.
What were you saying about the Rembrandt now?
Yeah. So the Rembrandt here, that to me is one of the great paintings of love that you can look at, because this is his wife. It's painted late. It's painted in his last couple of years. Again, the tenderness that he paints her, it's just pure love. It's pure love for her specifically, and love for humanity, and there's something in that whole her hand there, the way it's kind of broken up with this here, but it's so perfect. It's so tender. Just this part here can tell you all of you need to know about this painting. But obviously, if you travel with the light and the way he paints her expression here, the pose, the way the neck is turning, I mean, that's where the tenderness comes from. It's these moments of it's the things that we always see and feel when we experience them in life, but we don't know how to call them. That's what he does with this neck here, I feel, and it's a marvelous painting. And if you look at it in real life, it's like all these spots, these background, these darks, they're so amazingly painted too. They're very hard because you're not, I wouldn't be necessarily that interested in them, when I paint something. So it's very, but he's totally interested. He's painting them in such a real way, and they're layered, and they create space, and they're just as involved as anything here. And so that's what's amazing about him. It's like there's no spot in the painting that he doesn't really care about. This is really a great masterpiece. Back to Greco here on the left, next to Caravaggio, that's in the Met. I love both these paintings a lot. The painting of El Greco is a narrative painting by him, and you feel it's different from what we looked at first. Obviously, the story here is Jesus giving sight to this guy here. The two people on the bottom here are the parents, probably. And then you have the people here and the people here waiting in line to get, healed as well. And the way he just constructs, we talked about construction and structure. There's so many things in this painting that are just mind-blowing in terms of geometry behind the scenes. These two groups in this middle section here that's open kind of lets whatever is, the divine power, the God power come from here into this and reach him. So the Jesus figure here is the one point, fully frontal, but and you can feel that side of him, and you feel that side of him. He's the only one like that. But then if you look, it's a much bigger painting than it's, you can't see the scale, but when you look at it, each one of these figures has its own intimacy, its own story. You can just feel like a whole painting in each one of these figures. And that is something he's able to do. He's able to create this intimacy that happens in every moment, but they still work as a whole. So they have their own time, but they still work, which is incredible. It's almost like hearing a jazz band, and the drummer goes into a solo set, and you're in the drummer, but it's still part of that song that everybody's part of. That's kind of what he does here with these figures, and then you have these two parents here creating that triangle here, kind of lets you into the painting, and then it opens up this other triangle here, that and it's just, and if you go here, there's one row to go into this deepness here, and then obviously behind them into this X here. The whole painting is like an X in a certain way, and you have these horizontals that run across it, from here. It's like a Mondrian painting. If you would strip it down from the figures and take away the narrative, you look at the Mondrian. And I think that's just the way he constructed the narrative and constructed the work. And as he moved things around, that became deeper into what he actually wanted to get at this from the story. And this Caravaggio here, a much darker painting, literally, but is also not in some way, because the light in it is so profound, and it's different, completely different from a Rembrandt light, which is humanistic and coming from the inside and inward. This is more projected lights, but there's so much drama and so much energy, and the way she looks at this figure, she can barely see in this reproduction here, but there's this incredible space that is almost no space in terms of flatness, in terms of the painting, but as you look at it, you see the space between the heads, between these two heads and this head, and there's a triangle here, and so that drama, pulls you into this world that he creates. I know Chris loves Caravaggio.
Yes, one of my favorites. Thank you for including him.
This is a late one, too, so it's...
What's the name of that one? Caravaggio, or what's the story?
I don't remember the actual name.
It's the Three Denials of... I can't remember the artist. I can't remember the name right now. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So
I'll go ahead and... Go ahead.
Dov, I have a question here.
Yeah.
We have been looking at two sets of paintings by two different people and at two different generations in a way. Are you trying to compare their similarities, even though these two are completely different in style? But are you trying to, again, forgive me if this is quite elementary, the question is, but are you trying to compare between the composition itself, or the use of lights and darks, or help me out to understand what these two have in common, or don't have in common, or...
It's a great question. I think showing them together like this, for me, is a way to show that, yes, a lot of similarities. There's also a huge amount of differences, obviously. But also to kind of not think about the chronological sense of art history, or think about it in a way that is literal. Like, what I'm trying to get at from doing this is that I don't think there's necessarily a real like progression in art. I feel like painters have always tried to get at something very, very deep from the world they looked at, from nature, and painted in various ways, obviously different ways, but also very similar ways. So you can have somebody from the 16th century next to somebody in the last century, or you can have somebody from China next to somebody from the US and compare them. And I think that way expands the vocabulary. It's a way to look at it in a way that you don't necessarily get taught. They teach you chronological sense, and region sense, and this is from that country and this is from that time, and then it progressed to this. And I don't think that's the way it was, or it is really. You look at the oldest you can get, cave paintings, and they're as real as anything Leonardo da Vinci did. There's anatomy in them. There's all this knowledge. So I don't think knowledge is a progressional knowledge in painting. I think it's always been something that people did either profoundly or not, but they did them from where they were and from their vantage point. And there's a lot of connections between them. So I'm aiming at that. And these two paintings here, for me, in some way related, but you can easily relate them in other ways to other paintings, or they can easily be not that related for you. And that's all good. I think it just, for me, it's just interesting to see these connections and to see how they relate. And one of the great things in New York and in the Metropolitan Museum itself is that it's probably the best museum for that exact thing, which is you have high quality stuff from every culture and every time in human history in such a way that you can never just disengage and look at one thing. If you want to see only Van Gogh, you will have to go through the Syrian or the Islamic department. If you want to go and see the Egyptian, you might have to go through the Chinese. And so that museum is always relating for you different cultures and different things. And it's probably the greatest in the world for that. Like if you go to the Louvre, you'll see European paintings, maybe more. Okay, maybe you'll have more of that, but you won't be able to relate all these different cultures, all these different ways of seeing, all these different ways of translating what they saw, the way this museum does it. So I wanted to, in a way, relate that way. Instead of just looking at one painting, which we can obviously do as well. I just wanted to get away from just seeing the one. So I don't know if I answered that question.
I thought that was well said. That's great.
Yes.
Okay. For instance, here, I don't know if they relate. This is kind of random, but I thought that it would look good next to each other. And the more I look at them, the more I see things that connect. And obviously, this is a Japanese sculpture, a great one in the Japanese department in the Met. And this is a Titian, one of the great Titians there. And it's a very interesting one because it actually says Titian in workshop. And we usually, when it's the artist in the workshop, it's a lesser painting because it's not just by the artist. But to me, this painting is not lesser in any way from any other Titian. And it's, I hope it's with workshop. I don't know if that's true or not, but I really hope for that because I feel the fact that a few people can paint this together and create this painting is a huge accomplishment and an incredible feat and something that kind of almost says something about the power of collaboration that maybe without the workshop there wouldn't exist, because this painting is so magnificent and has so many different things in it that, just to state a few, the way she's floating and sitting on that at the same time, those two things, both such mass to her, such weight, and she's still floating is unbelievable. Or the way this leg is touching here and not touching, and kind of like really awkward painting, but it works. It's just complete magic, and especially in front of the real life, you'd see how weird this part is. That whole back scene in itself, you just cut this little piece here of landscape with these figures dancing here. That would be one of the greatest paintings you can paint. Just this. And everything it says about music, about religion, about humanity, about being inside and being outside, nature, the power of nature. The way this fabric, this translucent way she paints this material, the pose, the way she's moving like this and turning, the anatomy, the drapery here, how that comes back in her, every aspect of the painting, just a marvelous thing. It's definitely one of my personal favorites there. And then you look here and you see this Japanese, and again, look at the drapes, look at these rhythms here, the way they repeat themselves in the body. You know, here, the eyebrows, the cheeks, the breasts, the belt, this. You know, it's all part. I mean, he decided to show you this, and this, and not to show you other things. You know, he's not showing you everything, but he's showing you what he wants you to see and what he's thinking about. And it's about harmony. It's about balance. It's about reaching that state of harmony. When you look at it, you start becoming that. You start feeling that within yourself. Because he was able to create that harmony and that rhythmic experience. So it's magic.
Yeah,
Really
it's amazing. That's a really cool piece. I don't think I ever saw that.
You probably have. You walked by it a few times.
Probably just.
Yep.
Probably I'm just on my way out.
I have a thought on the painting. If you were to cut her body shape out and move it up and to the left and compare that to the shape of the sky, do you see similarities there?
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Never thought of that one. It's absolutely true.
Hey Dov, I want to remind everybody that everyone's welcome to say something, join in, and you're also by no means obliged to at all.
Yep.
I mean, for me and Dov, we spent a lot of years sitting around having beers and talking about painting, and I mean, for me personally, it was one of the most important things in my development as a painter is being able to just talk. You know, that's one of the reasons why we are doing this. You know, again, there's no obligation, but it's be like we're sitting around at the same table and just hearing ideas about painting.
Exactly it, and I think we'll keep on going, and I can keep on going. But I think what I hope to do is in the next ones as well is share things from the Met, but maybe also share other things that we've experienced, like our teachers' work or painters that are not as known necessarily, figurative painters that kind of gave a lot of us the ability to paint figuratively now. People like that. So I'd like to show them as well, and then, you know, at any point, you know, we can just continue to discuss and talk about the painting and what you experience in your work in your studios as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much of the recent work you showed is emotional driven from the painter itself? For me, I have a lot of artwork that I pour emotion into. Do you think these same works are done with a lot of emotion, and that's the spectacular outcome, the emotional driven side of it? Or
I love the question, because it's what I care about the most as a painter, and people are so afraid to say it in some way. And you're absolutely right. I think it's definitely coming out of emotion and wanting to capture in a huge amount of it. But I don't necessarily think it's done when they were painting. You know, I don't know that they were emotional in that way, where you know those movies about painters crying as they paint. You know, I don't think that's what happens. You know, but I think the painter himself really wants that. So you're absolutely right. I think that's what he cares about, and so it's absolutely 100% emotional driven. You know, it's the feeling. That's what the painter wants. And I think he has a set of tools that he's crafted over many years of development to almost have the ability to let that emotion come through. So he to some degree, Titian knows how to paint a generic tree, okay, or a generic cello, or a figure. but then that is it's only generic in that in the sense that it's a few methods that he has which he doesn't care about so much, but they let him make it very specific and very ungeneric and very real for him, and capture that emotion in it. And that's what differentiates Titian from a lot of his contemporaries, maybe his ability to do it. Although there's many great painters in his time, not all Titian, but they're all great, a lot of great painters. But
Great
so I don't know
answer.
if that answers your question for me.
Yes, it does. Yes, 100%. I agree 1,000%. I was just wondering, I get a lot of feedback on my work about the emotional side of the way my work speaks to people. So looking at these paintings you've showed so far, I see great emotion put into certain details of the paintings that I was just curious about being emotional driven while they painted it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm just showing a few without talking really quickly. We have a few minutes.
Are these from completely
This is from-
different artists?
This is from the cloisters, different artists. Yeah, medieval artists. And obviously the ones before are all different.
Right.
Medieval, this is from the cloisters, this is Van Gogh. You had Renoir and a Buddha.
Those are good.
Did you take these photos?
A lot of them I did actually. Some I took from the website, but a lot of these I took myself.
I love this comparison.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think one artist is influenced by the other?
Absolutely. I think it's all a big link that never stops. That
We're all interconnected.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
one of the great anecdotes about Rembrandt is when he actually went bankrupt. And this is how we know all the stuff he owned, because they had to sell all of it. And so there's a list of the items he owned, and he had every part of the world. Like he had carpets from Africa, he had things from China, he had reproductions of Mantegna, Titian, Italian Renaissance. He owned many paintings of his contemporaries. He owned from every part of the world, really, and vases and things. And so you see how much he thought of all these things. So it's not for chance that there's a relationship between him and Chinese work and so many different things. So it's all a link. It's all connected, and I think it's true for everyone. I mean.
So do you have your own work that you compare with all of this master, that how they influence you in a way, or how your composition is similar to them, and how, we talk all of this thing by other people, but I would love to see your work side by side with one of the master, and how you interpret that. If you don't mind sharing.
We can do one talk where I show my work for sure, and maybe I can show some of my friends' work as well at the same time. I think that would be super cool. And if you want to show some of your work as well, I think that would be great. We can do maybe even 2 sessions where we show our own work. I'll be definitely into that. I don't want to put my work next to any of these. That's a little bit of a different level, but definitely with my friends, which influenced me even more than any of this. But this is something I like. For me, I still go to the Met you know, a few times a month, and it's almost like the most comforting I can. It's like going to do yoga. You know, it's like it's a relaxation and a meditation and comfort. It's a comforting place. It's like it just because you immediately connect. You connect to yourself through these great pieces of art, and you enter yourself. It's immediate. It's almost immediate. You can't help it. You just look at this Chinese sculpture and you're like, there's so much honesty and emotion in it. You have to be like that moment, you know. And so that's the great thing about it. It's an incredible experience.
Is the Met open right now?
It sure is. Thank God.
Good.
Yeah, it's they stayed open. Okay, these two are great to end up on. This Chardin here on the left, and this Albert Pinkham Ryder. And one of the coolest things I heard of just when I got to New York was from one of my teachers, Mercedes, that I mentioned. And I was looking at this painting here, and she said that the end of this bowl here, where it ends, is like the great horizon line in the sunset. And when we look at the sunset, the space from all the way to that end of the bowl is like a horizon line where the sun goes down. And that blew my mind. I'm like, how is still life can do that? And it did that. And you look at this tiny still life, and you feel that space, you feel that horizon line that she mentioned. And so it's not really a still life, it's all of them. It's landscape. It's a great experience. And then you look at this little Albert Pinkham Ryder and you feel the same. You know, I feel, here it is, here's that end of the bowl here. How much light, how much this, you know, experience of that moment, you know, of that moment where the sun is going down, and how can you capture that in you know, in this little rectangle? So it's amazing. It's a masterpiece, this thing. And this is an American painter, and you know, the end of the 19th century, and Chardin from France, you know, 17th century. And there's so much connection. You know, you can almost feel this moon can, or sun, or, you know, this can come here and be here and live there.
I love the shading, the uniqueness of the red and the apples compared to the shading of the white in the bowl. It's very unique. It speaks volumes to where he was at as he did certain lines in this painting. I can agree with the awesomeness of this one.
Can you go back to the two before this? Was it Jesus at the Emmaus table, that one on the left?
Yeah, that's Velasquez. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
It's a great painting. It's in the Met as well. And the way this hand here, this space here that's happening here, it's unbelievable.
Is that the story of Emmaus where Christ was revealed in the breaking of the bread after the resurrection?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting.
But the beauty of this, one of the beauties that I find in this painting is that you can't really experience it so much from the reproduction, but I remember that, is that this figure here, he's the one that feels the most holy to me. Like, he's the one that is most alive and real. He's a peasant, he's got no money, he's poor, but he's so real and so profoundly emotional that, and he is not. So what is he saying? He's like actually saying something else. He's saying God is here, you know, it's just as much as here as he's here.
It's an awe moment. It's a wow moment. Shocked.
That's the way I read it. That was my revelation in front of this painting. It's like, wow, he's that's the top of the triangle right here, this man. Yeah.
The experience is happening between the two individuals, not with Jesus.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What were you saying? Sorry.
I think he was saying that the experience is happening between the two folks at the table, the exchange.
Yes. That there's an experience here, and then he's obviously entering.
He's almost like in a meditative state, Jesus, or something. I looked
Yeah.
that too.
The other painting, I don't quite see what that is, but now that you talk about this, I started to see how I see the other one. Is that a dogs or some animals? And one dog
Yeah.
on the bottom has a lot more expression than the rest of the painting. It's similar to the guy that you said on the left-hand side, the peasant, that has a lot more expression than the rest of the painting. So now I started to understand where you're going. A bit too late, but it's
No,
better.
that's I didn't even know why I connected them. It just kind of happened, and you're absolutely right. It's very interesting. You know, this is obviously a dead rabbit, but and you can relate it to Jesus in some way. You know, it's kind of interesting. You know, not kind of. It's really interesting. And there's it's so animated with this cat here on the bottom. But you almost feel the same type of structure, you know, some sort of like experience of space that happens here and happens in so many of these paintings.
Yeah, there's that triangle things that you showed. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And in this painting, the scale and the color is so profound. I mean, the size of things. So it's seen. It's definitely from nature.
So you're saying there's a triangular focal point from each individual in the painting that draws your eye to almost to the center of it and makes it, you know, you capture all at once, I guess is the best way to say it.
I feel like your eyes almost have to move. They have to move. It's because you land on a spot and you become a little person in there, and you start walking through the spaces. You become, you know, you have to go and jump on that object, and you have to go and look at the at the rabbit, and you're in between the apples, and you immediately feel that the space and their sizes, and how those would relate to you. These are huge apples, and the sizes are not how a camera would capture them. It's much more real in the sense that it's the real mass of that apple. It's the real mass of that pear here, you know, and it's in relation to this head. So because it's in relation to everything, you can't stop. You can't just sit and look at it. You know, you almost can, but you can't. You almost have to go here and almost here, and then that traveling, that experience of moving, and that is profound. It gives you a place to move. You know, that's what we want. We're changing. We're you know, we can't stop.
So the sum of all parts equal the whole in the painting itself. But it is very intriguing to see the different aspects of how each individual thing captures your attention drastically before you move on to the next. I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Dov,
yeah,
really, really cool, man. What do you think? Should we?
I think this is a good place to end this one, and I really hope everybody wants to join again next week and continue this discussion, this talk, and hopefully I can talk less and you guys more. And I think the more that happens, the more I think we can engage in an interesting dialogue. And I love hearing all these thoughts.
Thanks so much, Dov. This is really
Thank
very,
you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Hopefully
everyone. Awesome.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah, thank
Absolutely.
you.
It's my honor.
Yeah, thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and
Thank you,
Ellen.
guys, for putting this together.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for joining. It's really cool, and like Dov said, as we do a couple more of these, maybe obviously this is the first one. There's no obligation to join in, but if you feel more comfortable to next time, do so. You're welcome to, and or not. So.
Yep. I hope to talk about more of these because I have almost a lot more here. But then I also, like I said, I would love to kind of engage with images of work of a group of painters that are not that well known. Like I said, Paul Resica, Rosemary Beck, some of these painters, Robert De Niro Sr. It'd be cool to see because they're not really seen, but they're very important figurative painters. So we can look at them. And then we can do also just contemporary paintings and look at that as well.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Dov.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dov. Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.